Because that must have been quite a leap of faith, because there's one thing, I'm not undermining what the telecoms industry is, but it's a phone, there's tariffs, etc. But IT, thousands of products, distribution.
I didn't know that at the time. So when I look at it, I go, right, there's a phone, it's got an operating system, there's a computer, it's got an operating system, I'm going to be fine, right?
Delusion.
How hard can this be? It's just a slightly bigger phone. It was, talk about learning curve, baptism of fire doesn't even do it justice. To get your head around, one part of that channel is huge, but to go into a distributor that sells so much to so many, and by the way, no one told me what a distributor was. Like, no, I didn't know. It took me ages to work. So what are we doing again? So where are our customers? Oh no, our customers are these people that sell to the customers. All right. So how do we speak to them? Oh, we don't speak to them. We speak to these guys. Okay. And what's the value that we do? So trying to understand what our job was and the value was, and and all this new aspect to a sales channel was mind blown. Absolutely mind blown.
Do you think distribution is the best place to start? Because I said to you over lunch, I was, if someone had looked at your CV, and I'm not knocking your CV, John, but if someone looked at your CV thinking...
Someone saw humanities on the CV.
Humanities. Nah. The phone's for you, and then want to make a change into broader. And you weren't, early 20s, you weren't early career. You've had a successful career.
I was over the hill, yeah.
Yeah, so you're past it. No, but do you think, that's a really good place to start distribution? Because you get a broad knowledge of both sectors, vendor and...
I think if you get a good understanding of what distribution is and does, it's the best place to start. Yeah. I think to give you a holistic view of the industry...
Yeah.
From start to finish, a distribution, normally you'll get to see the whole sales journey.
Yeah.
From inception to PO, close. And I think if you want to build a stable network of credible peers, colleagues, friends, etc., distribution is the best place to do that, because you have access to so many vendors, partners, other disties. I just think it gives you a 360 view of the landscape, more so than in any other industry. Like working in retail, it's quite it's a huge industry, but it's quite isolated. Yeah. I mean, IT is a huge industry, but you seem to know everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, when we're chatting, everyone we talk about, oh yeah, I know him, I know them, and this is a multi-billion, probably $1 trillion. The guy who works at this vendor over there, and what one he used to be at, and we used to be there, and my friend. It's insular, but huge. It's a very bizarre thing to explain to someone who hasn't been in it before. But that's exciting for someone new coming in. Even more now, someone can come in, do a few months even, and then they're off in the vendor land.
Yeah.
For me, that was a motorway that you joined after 5-6 years, maybe.
Did you? So when you were in distribution, what role did you start in there? What were you doing?
I started as a product manager.
Right. Okay. And then you worked your way out. So talk to me about your career. How did you get promoted?
A few sideways steps. Yeah, it wasn't always upwards. I have to be honest, because other people are going to say. So started off with a role in a managed services venture that Computerlinks built called Alvia. Don't ask me how the name came about or what it means, because I can't remember. But we did a suite of managed services. And I think Computerlinks were very much trying to offer that full service, offering to partners and to augment any gaps that partners had. So that was quite a niche area to get into. And I spent a lot of time in that, trying to get my head around what that was and what that did. And I didn't realise at the time, but that isn't distribution as a whole. That's a very boutique area.
Yeah.
So then when Computerlinks were acquired by Arrow, we sort of stepped up, and there was an opportunity to go and be the BDM for Microsoft, which was a new vendor of ours. So that was like, oh, I've heard of Microsoft. Yeah, I get that. Microsoft again, that's another behemoth that just so large, so exciting. So I did that for a little bit. But in all honesty, what I had understood was, I think the security part of Computerlinks was our probably heritage. That was what they were very strong at. We had a very strong structure in security. So I moved from Microsoft into RSA, and then 3 or 4 years in that, and then started to look at I got a role as a business manager for sort of newer vendors, so like Skybox and things like that were coming on board, and that was when I started to. Skybox was a great technology to give you a view of the landscape even further. So every job, every move, you're learning more about the industry, but at the same time you're putting contacts, in your old Rolodex. You're kind of going, got on with that good. I can give that guy a shout, and I can speak to that guy. I can engage with that person over there, and you start to realise how important that network is in this industry. So then, moved out and then finished as a business manager, looking after some of our networking technologies, Ruckus, Extreme, things like that.
You mentioned when you started at Computer Links about the culture. Was that a big thing that drew you to the company?
Massive. It was probably 80% of the choice.
Really?
80,
What was it about it that you liked and you thought it was good there?
So there was a lot of. It was in the days when everyone used to be in the office. If you remember that. It was. But even when I went to the interviews, like you could see. The kind of camaraderie and the fun and the excitement and the kind of ribbing, and I'm really hesitant to use the word banter because it's overused, but there was a lot of that going on.
Fun environment.
Yeah. People pushing each other, succeeding as well though, winning, and no one was leaving. People were staying. Everyone was getting their 10-year Rolex, and so I was thinking, what is it about this culture that it was important to me, because retail's quite transient. People come and go. There's high turnover. I'd been there for a long time in relation to the rest of the industry. And again, computer. I don't jump around from job to job. Right. It takes quite a lot for me to really buy into where I'm going. I have to be committed to that. It has to be the right thing. 9 out of 10 boxes need to be ticked. You know, I'm too old to take a leap of faith with the kids and my wife's spending habits and things like that. That's the way it is. And I think with the move into, it was the culture, it was the I didn't hear anyone say a bad word about it. I did a lot of due diligence, a lot of what's good. Oh, it's great. We do these Christmas parties that are fully paid for. We do summer parties that are fully paid for. If you've got a family and kids, they love that. They bring those, they get those involved, and that was important to me. Young family, being part of a business where young families are endorsed and a big part of the culture. So all of that was big at the time. It was really important. All those boxes would tick.
And how does that get affected when a bigger company buys them? Because the culture obviously changes. Sometimes for bad, sometimes for better. How did you take it when Arrow bought Computer Links?
I think I was slightly different to a lot of the more long-term Computer Links. For me, that offered excitement and scale and scope that we didn't necessarily have before. Maybe that was a naive way of looking at it. And it wasn't an immediate kind of one day with Computer Links, the next day we're Arrow, right, change your business cards, get rid of that Clinks logos. Here's how we're going to do things. Here's your new rules of engagement on a PDF and crack on. It was a much more smooth transition really. And I think Arrow, in fairness to Arrow, they acquired a lot of distributors, a lot of the smaller distributors, and they acquired them because those smaller distributors were good and they had something to offer. So it wasn't a case of just buying an office and the people. They were buying the IP, our services team, our SOC support team, all those kind of things that Computer Links had were important value add to the Arrow overall package. So they were very careful, I think, Arrow, to integrate with us as much as get us to integrate with them. So I found it quite a smooth transition. I think if you look back now, it's quite stark, but over the time it was quite. Like I said, I found it exciting. It gave us scope and scale that we didn't have before.
Now, John, most people that I speak to in distribution, the holy grail is to go and work for a vendor. That's what they all want to do. Well, they all tell me they want to do that. And you ended up doing that. So how did this opportunity come about? How did Bitdefender get you?
To be honest, I was very happy at distribution. I always was. And I didn't see myself necessarily moving. But again, one of my ex-colleagues that I'd worked with, he'd always said, listen, if the right role comes up, you trust me and I trust you. If the right role comes up, I'll be dead honest and we'll have a chat about it. And he called me and he said, listen, we've got this role. It's a vendor called Bitdefender. And first off, I'm like, well, I've heard of them, but they're small. So that's for me. I thought that to move from from Arrow to one of the big vendors, I thought that's too much of a risk. You get found out there, whatever, because there's I still have these kind of self-doubt in my ability. But he said, listen, it's this vendor. You'll be coming on board, and we're trying to build this channel. But we're not startup. We've been around 16, 17 years, but we've got a startup agility. Okay, so you've still got the ability to have a bit of free thinking and have a bit of impact on the way we do things, but you're still going to get your expenses paid.
Yeah.
So there was it sort of ticked those boxes. I really trusted and liked this colleague, and he said, "Listen, I'm heading up." You know, he said everything's a gamble, but this is a pretty good one, and it's turned out to be that way. So that was it really. My blind faith in my pal, and then also again due diligence into the vendor, the technology, where we were going, the market, and it seemed like a good segue into the vendor land, because I think you look at vendor land, it's like at Disley you're kind of next to the M6, right, and you're waiting for your time to get on, right? and it felt like it was a good time to jump on, and it was good.